Our first speaker tonight, Zosia Hale, is a domestic infant adoptee from Western Massachusetts. She experienced reunion a few weeks after her high school reunion in 2015 by driving down to Arkansas to meet the entirety of her birth family. She would go on to move there, attending college at the Arkansas River Valley and returning to New England post-graduation to work in outdoor education in 2022. She now focuses her writing on the 6 years she spent in Arkansas, the decade she has spent navigating her reunion with her birth family, and a lifetime spent contemplating the world through the lens of an adoptee. She will be reading her piece, Hidden in the Reeds.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Yeah. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, but can y'all raise your hand if you are adopted? Would that be? Oh, thank you. That's really nice. Thank you. My name is Zosia. I'm originally from Western Mass. I was adopted when I was a baby, and I spent the minute my adulthood started, so did reunion, which I haven't met a ton of people who that's happened to, but in the time that I was in Arkansas, I did not know any adoptees, and it's amazing to be here and see all of you, so thank you. Thank you. All right. Ever since I learned how to write, I have loved writing, and as long as I have loved writing, I have found it extremely embarrassing. Everyone I admired the most growing up did not talk that much, and they especially did not feel a need to talk about themselves. They self-expressed through just being present and dedicating themselves to the day-to-day, taking in details. Stories, on the other hand, always felt deceitful and a little bit shameful to me. To my mind, they were a way to escape reality through controlling it, making it look how you want to look, portraying yourself how you would like to be seen as opposed to how you are. And I would know. I spent a lot of time reading fantasy and playing pretend when I was growing up. The earliest ways I wrote reflected the earliest ways that I read. They were just a form of escapism. In fantasy worlds, I could find a reliable, understandable version of reality. And my real life, once I looked up from the book pages, felt cold, confusing, and surreal. I could easily blame the coldness I felt looking up at my own life on the environment I lived in at the time. Despite the best intentions of the two people who adopted me, I did not have a great home life. There were plenty of events that happened in my childhood, things I saw, things I was told about or experienced that would explain why the passing years felt less like growing up and more like dying by degrees. Adoption, unfortunately, was not on that list of things I considered. But when I look back on childhood now, I realize that the fact that I was adopted in many ways became a single source of hope in my life, a stubborn hope that I could not kill. It was like there was this part of me hidden away inside that was refusing to follow along with the identity I had been given, who was convinced that she was living in the wrong story and that there was a different life waiting for me on the outside. I ran away a lot as a kid. In the early years, I would take my time and I would pack an honest-to-God suitcase. And I would write a note, and I would tell my adoptive parents that I was leaving to go find my birth family, not that I really knew where they were. And as the years passed and things at home got worse, the running away was less thought through, more desperate. But still, even once I was an older child with no suitcase or shoes or socks, I would still be tearing down the road in my bare feet, convinced that there was something waiting for me at the end of the run. Someone who could take me out of my life and back to the right story. Despite the lack of memory or language I have for the event, I feel sure that my body remembers losing my mother. The author, Jeanette Winterson, calls this phenomena amongst adoptees a molecular unsettling, and the adoptee author, Nancy Verrier, calls it the primal wound. But the point is the same. The grief is fundamental. I swear I could feel the sadness of the loss in every cell of my body, every day of my life, but if I go hunting for the source in my memory, there's nothing. There's just darkness. When I did meet my birth family, hugged my birth father for the first time in a hotel lobby. I was 18 years old, and for the first time in my entire life, and I mean my entire life, I felt whole and I felt like I deserved to be alive. It was like I had never taken a real breath before, and suddenly I was breathing. My life could finally start. And that, I think, was the real fantasy, that I could wait to start my life until they came to get me. To me, fantasy and adoption are intrinsically linked. Just look at most mythologies, fairy tales, even horror stories. We're never surprised to see a child with no parents at the heart of a story. Think of Harry Potter, think of Cinderella, think of Moses. The world unconsciously understands what it means to lose your family, and as a result, they project us into their myths and stories. They use this orphan as the origin of great heroes, terrible monsters, parables. Adoptees inspire the extreme because the world unconsciously, whether they will admit it or not, understands that the extreme exists inside of us and they're afraid of it. People, well-intentioned sometimes, love to treat adoptees like our lives are a winning lottery ticket just by virtue of the fact that we were adopted. The framing is typically that what happened to us, our relinquishment and adoption, makes us special. You were chosen, people say. You must feel so lucky. I've heard that so many times. It's just the strange relative of the oldest foundling stories, a twisted modern version of the mythical baby hidden in the reeds. But of course, I'm not special. I'm just a person. And the pain is extreme. That part is true, but I have no special talent or ability because of it. I just have pain. And my desire to write about adoption is no longer the desire that shamed me as a child, the desire to escape into fantasy or to pretend that there is another timeline, another version of me more lovable. This is the only life I have, and I am lovable. The writer Anne Carson coined this concept of a silence at the heart of writing, a space you leave for God, or at least a space for the questions you want to ask God, given that God doesn't answer. I think that when I'm writing now, I am writing towards that silence. I would like to write something true enough and real enough that the world could look past the myths and the magical orphans and the bad seeds towards the heart of silent grief that they cannot stand to hear. Thank you.